Hi, my name is Lindsay Frank, and I'm a first grade bilingual teacher in Peoria, Illinois. After reviewing the professional dispositions of learners, I will be commenting on the dispositions that I already possess and do fairly well in. But I will also be commenting on those dispositions that I have room for improvement. Also, I will discuss how the dispositions prepare me to build stronger relationships with students and families, and always watching out for any potential bias that I might have. And finally, how will I integrate feedback from my yearly evaluation to adjust my dispositions and teaching practices for next year? Well, first of all, as an educator, I set high expectations for myself and for my students. I believe that you get out of an education or you get out of a profession what you put into it. And it basically comes down to the biblical principle of sowing and reaping. Secondly, because I've had the privilege of working in many settings with diverse populations of children and students, I have learned to respect those differences. Though there may be aspects of another culture that I may not care for or agree with, I must show respect for them. Interestingly enough, most of my teaching career has taken place in the Hispanic community. Fairness is another disposition that I do a decent job in, always keeping in mind the golden rule, because all human beings, whether adults or children, have a sense of fairness and what is just. However, I could continue to improve in this area by taking extra time with my students to get to the heart of a matter, whether it is a behavior problem or an academic problem. And I'm determined to take those extra few minutes this coming school year to conference with my students one-on-one so that I can better serve them as their teacher. Professional conduct is a disposition that is an area of strength for me. For example, I practice punctuality, attendance, proper attire, a positive attitude, and constructive communication with my colleagues. The disposition of reflection is something I do throughout the day, asking myself whether or not the method or instructional strategy I'm using is working. Oftentimes I find that I don't like the answer to my own question. But what I do in those cases is that I approach other colleagues to get their feedback and ideas to implement into my own teaching. Furthermore, my own innate sense of curiosity spawns the questions that I ask while teaching in the classroom in order to awaken the natural curiosity that children have and to help them think through a concept at a deeper level. This is also an area for improvement because my first graders have a limited ability to think abstractly or use higher level thinking skills. In order to improve this, I will seek more feedback from other first grade teachers as to how they encourage their students to think at higher critical thinking skills. As they say, honesty is the best policy. And for me as an instructor, I practice this every day because I make mistakes, and my students will catch me in simple mistakes like, "Mr. Frank, you forgot to dot your I. Go back and dot your I." So I go back and dot my I. And I just simply mention to them, as your teacher, I still make mistakes just as you do. And it's okay to make mistakes. We are here to learn from our mistakes. And so I provide an atmosphere where they can learn without shame and continue to grow and be honest about their failures and successes. Compassion is also a disposition that is a strong suit for me. Students need to know that you care and that you love them. This opens the door of their heart and mind so that they are ready to learn from you as their teacher. Advocacy is a disposition that I showed growth in this last year. I had an 8-year-old boy that was in my first grade classroom that definitely showed signs of having special needs. I kept asking questions from my colleagues about what to do. And one colleague said, tell his parents to get a complete evaluation on him, which I did. As they chose that special evaluation, the results showed that he did indeed have special needs, and they moved him to another school where he got the one-on-one attention that he needed and deserved, and is now progressing well. Finally, the disposition of dedication shows up in my teaching this past year through early arrival at school, at least 1 hour before, tutoring after school, always having detailed lesson plans ready for me and for any substitute teacher. Well, this brings me to a question about how do the dispositions demonstrate my ability to understand other cultures, genders, learning differences, and to build stronger relationships with students and families, and to always be mindful of any teacher bias I might have. Well, all teachers come from their own background, and that's fine. In order to connect to and build relationships with people of other cultures, genders, and learning differences, the 10 dispositions are indispensable. For instance, as a teacher, I must show respect for the cultures of others. I allow my own curiosity to drive me to better understand and appreciate the differences with the students of other cultures. For that process to be complete, teacher reflection is necessary. Likewise, the disposition of fairness is foundational to increase trust in order to build bridges with my students and their parents. If there is even a hint of bias, it will undermine that process. This brings me to another question, and that is how to use the feedback that I got from my annual performance evaluation and how to use data, student data performance, to adjust my dispositions for this coming year. Well, with my first year under my belt, I have received my first annual teacher evaluation, and overall, I was very pleased. It was very positive. However, there was an area of growth for me that I need to pay attention to, and I agree with my assistant principal, it's valid, and that is to spend extra time digging into the pacing guides that the district offers, and also digging into the curriculum at a deeper level to understand the breadth and the depth of the curriculum. So that's what I'm doing this summer, is I've brought curriculum home, I have the pacing guides, and I plan to take time to really dig in and become familiar so that I can teach with greater confidence. As I continue to grow in these dispositions, I will continue to become the teacher God has called me to be. Thank you very much.